Welcome back to Tech, Tesla, and Trends. Tonight, I thought I'd follow up on a tweet thread that I was reading from Ezer Richaga, and he was talking about the Tesla phone back in or his idea of what it should be and that it made good sense. And he referenced back to a July uh, thread that talked about it being essentially, he had 9 points, essentially that it was a brilliant idea and that he who owns the screens owns the future. And AGI this would be a place to be able to train AGI. Speech recognition is another opportunity to train AGI. And then the competitive advantage of having a 5 to 10% markup for your phone, being able to kick that out. And the reality of it is, from my perspective, if Tesla ever did enter that within a number of years, they would already be applying that no part's the best part startup mentality and bring that margin way up. And then his sixth point was their OEM advantage, and to use a loss leader, so to speak, for into the I see that as a loss leader into the Tesla economy. I don't know, it has an opportunity and a potential value there. And then seven, the improved software development, and that actually to me is a big point that I think Tesla could indeed benefit from. Their that whole ecosystem and how you build it and make things more interactive and useful to us as users has a definite potential there. And then Tesla as a WeChat alternative or competitor or something like that was one of his was his eighth point. And I find it funny because we, with the completion of the Twitter deal, the Everything app, as I've discussed in previous videos, that truly is, and I see that as Elon has never taken his eyes off of WeChat. And it's a point and a purpose that he has going forward, I think, to bring the Everything app into a WeChat format, and it'll evolve and become something entirely wholly its own. But and then from a competition, his ninth point was competition for Car OS as an important point in this market. And there is some truth there, but the reality of where Tesla sits as far as a manufacturer and as a developer of EVs, it truly isn't one that I feel has a lot of strength. Yes, I think Apple and Google are going to interact a lot more into this market, but each manufacturer is going to choose the OS that runs their car. And I think FSD is by far one of the most convincing arguments that's going to exist with Car OS in my mind. Yeah, the Google and Apple may enter that market, but until they have a truly sustainable FSD alternative, I can't see that as a legitimate reason long term. Now, provided that they do, they being Apple and Google, get on progress with their Car OS in a way that is competitive from an FSD perspective, because quite frankly, I think that FSD is one of the most game-changing aspects of this whole Car OS long term. But looking at shifting back to the whole point of this particular video is the Tesla phone and why it would make sense, contrary to Elon's September 14th, 2020 tweet of definitely not, when Ars Technica was suggesting a Tesla watch. He's saying that smartwatches and phones are a thing of the past, and that Neuralinks are going to take their place. Elon may be right. Neuralinks may take their place. I just am not convinced that that is going to be as quickly implemented as Elon might desire. I am not technophobic in any way, shape, or form. I'm often willing to be a part of the, if not the bleeding edge, that first wave of the leading edge in any piece of technology. But I am not keen on having my skull drilled open and have something put into my brain just yet. There's a there's a large leap of faith that's involved in that, and I'm not there yet. I think that there is a potential for that someday in the future to truly revolutionize how we look at the world. But there's a lot of hurdles before we get there. And getting a monkey to play Pong and synthesizing the pig snout with nerves is all wonderful and good. I do see that as progress and as a banner waving moment of, hey, look at what we're able to capture in data from a data perspective. But that is a far cry from the interactive world that we have within our phones and the interactive device for controlling all of our gadgets and everything else. So while Elon may be technically correct that Neuralink will eventually take over, I don't believe that it is an imminent change, unless there is something that Elon's aware of that we're not. It'll be interesting to watch, and I'll absolutely be discussing Neuralink at some point in the future. But from my perspective, the Tesla phone still holds that whole idea that was sort of foisted onto the world by ADR Studios back in February. I think it was February 2nd of 2021 that they posted their concept of the Tesla Pi phone. And if connectivity on Mars and Neuralink and all of that stuff wasn't enough to give you an idea that it was concept only, I don't know how people get confused by people proposing cool ideas or attempting to advertise their services and abilities. But I think ADR Studios certainly earned their ability, or earned their place in history for placing the Tesla Pi phone into the lexicon of many Tesla focused channels and other commentators. So giving them credit for the idea, I think right now is where I am at. I can't find anything earlier than that. But why it makes sense to me is primarily it's an interface with everything that Elon already has. And yeah, he says that Neuralink is the end goal, but even in an end state, there's still the occasional need for what I see as the niche that the phone holds. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it goes away in time. But I don't see that for another decade at its earliest, and there is an opportunity, and I do see the point number 2 that Ezer has is that he who owns the screens owns the future, and I think Tesla would absolutely be able to dominate some screen value there the phone definitely already has the opportunity to exist as a key for your Tesla. And then, at some point in the future, it also would be an interface point for your Tesla bot. Those are important, and I see that as sort of a default functionality. And if both are programmed by Tesla at its root level, they interface much better than having to port apps from one, for Apple and for iOS. The software development side is more uniform to what Tesla has, and it should play better, which would give them the advantage in that arena. And I see a lot more coming from Tesla in the home world. The interface with the HVAC and the whole air exchanger concept that they've talked about. And then I honestly, I've got another one that I don't see much on, but the security mode of Teslas, I see that being extended to the home at some point in the future. That there's just a way that Tesla handles security that is entertaining, to put it in a blunt way, I guess, is what I see. They don't take themselves too seriously, but they do the job well and are able to capture the data in a way that is useful for authorities. This is something that I think is of value and that Tesla will bring to the market at some point in the future. Obviously the Everything app would be a big selling point if it were obviously not exclusive to the Tesla phone, but it would be a good place to run in a native environment for that. And SpaceX, and then of course Swarm Space from an IoT perspective. And if you're not aware of Swarm Space, perhaps you should take a look at that one. It's one of SpaceX's acquisitions over the years for IoT, and that's another place for it to interact. For you to interact with your devices in your home, and again, the phone is the logical place for that to occur. So I think overall, the Tesla phone would be very good for the ecosystem of Tesla. You have existing app potentials, and I think with the acquisition of Twitter and the folks that you have already internal to Tesla for software development and several other arenas, plus you would have the ability to acquire some of the industry-leading engineers if you were actually to go down that route of building a Tesla phone. So I could see that as having a great benefit. And the other one that could be tossed on there is at some point, as Boring Company comes online with more and more tunnels, it would be your if you had your Tesla phone, it would provide an easy access pass into the boring tunnels. Just another, part of that whole ecosystem. I see Elon's point that he has a broader picture for the future, and he doesn't necessarily think that phones will remain in that picture. Maybe he's right, but from where I sit right now, I suspect I'll still have a phone in a decade, and that to me is one of those opportunities that maybe instead of it being the Tesla Pi phone, it should be the Neuralink Pi phone, so that it can merge and become what Elon's vision is at some point in the future. But for now, I see an advantage that could exist if Tesla were to engage in that particular marketplace, and they absolutely would end up with industry-leading profits before many years had gone past, just because of the way that Tesla approaches manufacturing, and they would dominate. So for now, we'll leave that there. I would recommend, and I'll put a link to the tweet thread there for Easer, and also for the ADR original post. So we'll talk to you a little bit later. Have a good night.